What if I told you that you didn't have to do homeschool planning on a nightly, weekly, or even monthly basis? I'm Rachel. I'm a second generation homeschooler, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you about our family's homeschool planning method, which I could affectionately call the set it and forget it homeschool planning. You know, it's kind of like a slow cooker where you just dump all the ingredients in, all the right ingredients in the morning, and I don't spend the whole day stirring it and fussing it and thinking about is it going to burn and all that kind of stuff. I just open it up at dinner time and it's done. So that's basically, in a nutshell, my approach to homeschool planning is I plan for the year. I'll choose curriculum for the year. We'll choose the resources that we're going to use up until those resources are all done and used up. But we don't sit around with planners and write down what lessons are going to happen, what days, and what weeks we're going to do school and what weeks we're going to not do school and all that. We just don't. Now, I do want to say every homeschool family is different, and I want you to do what brings joy and peace and effectiveness to your homeschool. But I did want to come here and be a voice to just say, if you're feeling stressed out by some kind of feeling like you need to be responsible homeschool mom and you need to plan and you need to have a plan for every day, every school day, and if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail, I wanted to say, actually, we've been homeschooling for 26 years. We've graduated 6 kids from homeschool already, and we've never really done the whole homeschool planning thing. So just because you see something being done on YouTube, weekly homeschool planning routines or those type of things, it doesn't mean it's a must. And if it's not something that's bringing joy to your routine, or if it's not something that you feel like you really have time to do, you can actually make choices that allow you to not do that. Okay, so 1, what allows us to skip homeschool planning? And you can call us lazy for this, but we choose homeschool curriculums that don't require the teacher to plan. We choose curriculums that you can just have the planning approach of, guess what, tomorrow I'm going to turn to the next page and I'm going to do the next thing. This is our homeschool approach. We do the next thing after we finish the thing. We use Sunlight. We've used Abeka. Now my Purely Preschool follows the same approach. So we use these types of curriculums where you just open the book and you do the next page. And yes, sometimes you run into a lesson that's extra long and you've been working on it for a while and you're like, I feel done. So you just stop the book and then the next day you finish the lesson. Or some days you fly through a lesson in 5 minutes. You're like, that's not enough for me. And so you just go on and do the next lesson until you're done. So, but we don't plan to do 2 lessons on one day or half a lesson. We just do the next thing for the appropriate length of time, and it works. Another factor is we know ourselves. I'm not sure if you can tell by looking at me, but I'm not like the super chill kind of person. We are year-round homeschoolers. We homeschool 4 days a week, and we are not the kind of people that are just going to wake up randomly and be like, let's not get our schoolwork done today. We're just like school. We love school. It's fun. It's our normal. It's part of our routine. We enjoy it. So we would choose not to do school because we had a reason to not do school, because we had an opportunity to go to the zoo or something like that. But we don't make a plan of these days we're going to do school and then we have to do school these days, and these days we're not going to do school. We choose to not do school when there's some good reason to not do school, like we have a chance to go on a vacation, so we won't do school here. Or it's Christmas, so we're not going to do school then. So number 2 question that gets asked when I talk about this approach is, well, what do you do about lesson planning? And again, I don't lesson plan. You got to remember, I have taught in a classroom, but you got to remember, you're teaching your own kids. You're not teaching a classroom. So when you are teaching a classroom, yes, you need to have a lesson plan. You've got dozens of kids, all eyes on you. You need to be going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, keeping their attention, keeping it all wrapped up. You're on a tight time crunch. But you're a homeschooler for a reason. You're home with your own kids. If they ask a question and you don't know the answer, you don't have to be all worried about, oh, I'm going to look bad in front of them because I don't know all the answers. No, it's an opportunity for a life skill. When I go in to teach my little sisters Chinese, I'm not a fluent Chinese speaker. I'm a much better Chinese speaker than they are. But they sometimes have a question about a character that comes up in the book. So what we do, we go to the next story in the book, we read it, we go over grammar and vocabulary in that story, we practice making our own sentences, we talk about, answer questions about the story, we do all these things, and sometimes there's a character that I don't know. And then so I show them how to look it up, and then we look up sentences. How can this be used? What character compounds is this character used in? Because if you know Chinese, it's all about the character compounds. Anyways, side note. When you're teaching your own kids, you don't have to go in thinking, I know all the answers and this is the exact flow that my lesson is going to be. You can be a little bit more chill. This is homeschool. The other question that might be asked is, what about supply prep? If I'm not planning, if I'm not looking ahead and seeing what kind of experiments are going to be in the book, then I might not have the supplies. And number one, I don't really like experiments all that much. Number two, I've found that when kids really want to do an experiment or a project, they make sure you get the supplies. They do not forget. They see the experiment in the book and they think it is awesome. And so if we don't have those supplies on hand, then they make sure we get them. So we do fun stuff. We've made ice cream, we've made pavlova, we've done fun stuff, and we did volcanoes not too long ago too, which I think pretty much all that stuff, I think except for kosher salt, needed some kind of salt like that. But most of the things we did have on hand. We didn't have to wait and get them. But typically I find that if a kid sees an experiment or a project in the book and they just really want to do it, they help you remember. They help you remember by repeating it many times and telling you at the store and all that good stuff. So I don't really feel a need to plan for fun because the kids make sure the fun happens. As far as rabbit trails or extensions kind of go from the lesson, I don't plan those out. I don't go see what we're reading about and then think, what could I extend on from that? No, as I'm reading a lesson or teaching a lesson, connections and extensions jump up in my mind as it goes, or they jump up in the minds of my sisters and they say, hey, what about this? Or they ask questions about this. And then I know our homeschool library. I can go bring a book off the shelf. Hey, this book talks more about this. Or we can look up a video on the internet. And I feel like you don't really need to prepare for extensions. And when you do, then you can kind of end up a little bit disappointed because you get all excited about some big plan that you saw in some other mom's home on social media was a really big hit with her kids and she was super interested, but then you teach the lesson and actually the kids aren't super interested in that topic, but you made this whole preparation about a big extension on that topic and your kids are kind of like, well, I don't care. So I tend to do just going with the flow. I bring out the points that really strike me as interesting as we go, or I bring out the points that really strike the kids as interesting as we go, and you don't actually have to plan for it. You can just roll with it. Again, it's homeschool. You don't have to have this big master plan or else your kids are going to judge you and laugh at you like teenagers at a public school. And what about record keeping? We definitely do keep records. We have a high schooler. We keep records of her grades. We don't come from a state that requires a certain number of school days, but we have never worried about not having enough school days, or we don't come from a state that requires records of the number of school days. But we've also never worried about having enough school days in a year because I'm pretty sure we do more than the number of school days you're supposed to do because we love schoolwork. But as far as record keeping, we keep grades for the older one in her transcript and in her records, and that is of course because she's in high school. You need to keep grades. We also note down and keep grades for my 5th grade sister, and that's more for her own motivation so that she can see improvement in her own work over time. And both girls have their own kind of daily chart checklist where they manage their own reverse record keeping. They know all the subjects they're supposed to do in a day. It's all on their paper. I have shown this in another video, but they just write down the pages or the chapters that they do. And again, it's just the next page, the next lesson every time. It's not pre-planned. So I hope that this video was a little bit encouraging for those of you who kind of were wondering if you were doing something wrong by not doing daily or weekly lesson planning, and we're just taking a little bit more of a chill approach. I wanted to let you know you can definitely be a successful and joyful homeschooler, even if you don't have, that all color coordinated planner with every kid organized and all that. Now, if you like to do that, that's totally fine. Everyone has their hobbies. I mean, here I am on YouTube talking about homeschool. We all gotta have our hobbies, right? Bye. See you later.